So, what have you learned? For those of you who've been participating in the 5-day painting challenge, it's really important to think about including reflection at the end. So can you really believe it's already been 5 days? Great work, everybody. Glitter showers, bubbly, champagne, all of that kind of stuff. But before we call it done, before we finish things out, I want to strongly urge you to take a few minutes after you finished your day 5 painting, sit back and do a little reflecting. Reflection is really a vital part of closing that habit loop. Now, in business, they talk about doing postmortems at the end of a big project or a big push or a big promotion. It's kind of gross, and I don't want to talk about postmortems. So instead, we'll talk about reflection. I've talked a little bit before about tracking and accountability, and this is where reflection kind of loops in and encompasses both of those things. Y'all have been tracking all the way along if you've been posting your paintings, or if you've at least been taking photographs of your paintings at that 20 or 30 minute mark, or whatever the closest point was that you got to it. That tracking is an important trigger in your mind for moving towards completion and feeling a sense of progress and learning. So it's super, super important that you include some tracking in whatever kind of new habit pattern you're trying to develop. It's very satisfying to our mammalian brain. So it closes that habit loop. That's the first reason that reflection is super important. Second reason is that what you track, what you pay attention to, will grow. That is a scientific fact. It's not woo-woo. It's not the, what you put your focus on grows or what you put your intention on grows. Those are truisms as well. But the actual truth of the matter is that the scientific data backs up the fact that if you record your progress, if you track your progress, you'll make quicker progress. And there's more scientific data to back up the idea, actually the fact, that we are happiest when we are progressing towards a goal. That's right. You heard that correctly. Not necessarily when we achieve the goal, but when we're progressing towards the goal. So it's very satisfying to us as humans to have a goal or a why, something that we're working towards, and that process of working towards something is what satisfies us way more than actually reaching that goal. So I want you to think about 4 questions before you move on to your celebrations and your rewards, whatever it is that you've planned for yourself. From I've seen hot buttered popcorn to champagne to wild paint purchases online. 4 questions I want you to think about. First, what was your why? What was your goal? So maybe take out one piece of paper and just free write. Don't worry about sentence structure, grammar, or any of that kind of stuff. It does not have to be shared with a single person in the world. But write this for you, because what we put down on paper in longhand triggers different parts of our brain than what we type on the computer. So I want you to really get a piece of paper and a pen and make a mark on the paper. So, what was your why? What was your goal? That's your first question. Second question was, what steps have you taken to reach your why or your goal? So, what steps have you taken over the course of the challenge to reach your why or your goal? Third question, what is still getting in your way and why? So think about the things that are still roadblocks to developing that habit and why. Then the last question is, what have you learned? Actually, there's a 5th question too. So what have you learned about your painting and about yourself during the challenge? The 5th question is, what are the next small steps that you're going to take to still continue towards your why. So I kind of cheated and threw a fifth one in there. So let's go over those again. What's your why or your goal? What steps have you taken to achieve it? That would be, what are the routines that you've developed as a result of the challenge or just in general in your painting practice? Third thing, what are the things that are still getting in your way? And then when you take that into another feedback loop, you can think about how you can break the pattern there. And what have you learned about yourself and your painting through the process? So you might think that we're all done, but shock and surprise, we're not. Those of you who want to continue on, keep going, keep posting. I love seeing the daily paintings in here. So if you haven't joined the challenge yet, it's still open through the 31st, so hop on over if you want to get the email prompts. You can still post daily paintings after that. It's just the email prompts are going to stop on the 31st. So, or registering for the email prompts will stop on the 31st. So if you haven't registered yet, then by all means, go over to marygilkerson.com/daily painting challenge and register today so that you can get those email prompts. You'll start at day 1. Second thing is that I am planning a webinar for everybody who participated in the challenge come this Thursday. So I'm working on putting together a webinar that will talk about how you take the next step. What's the next step once you have completed this first feedback loop of developing a daily painting practice? So remember that third question was, what are the roadblocks that are standing in your way? So your homework for Thursday is to write those down, because I want to give you a chance to talk about those in the comments and in the chat within the webinar. So that free masterclass, that webinar is live, and I will be sending out an invitation to that to everyone who's in the challenge, whether you sign up today or whether you signed up 2 weeks ago. Everybody's going to get an invitation to the webinar. So keep your eye peeled for that tomorrow morning. It'll come out tomorrow on Tuesday morning. It'll be Thursday, and I'll have several times. I'm also going to run one on Saturday because I know some people can't attend things on Thursdays. A lot of people have jobs. And the time differences between Eastern time and Pacific time and European time can be kind of a challenge, and Australian time, because we have people all over the globe, can be a challenge in making sure that you can get into a live one. So I'm going to spread those out time-wise so that we can try to catch everybody in the challenge across the world who would like to participate in that webinar and that free masterclass. So let me know what your questions are. And if you already have some answers to those reflections, drop those in the comments below. Let me know what your nuggets are, the big takeaways that you've gotten from the challenge, either from today's talk on Facebook or any of them in the past. And let's dive into some of those and see where some of those roadblocks are and where some of those golden nuggets are that really help you move forward. So let me see. Let me pop into the group, and I'm going to pull up the Q&A questions, because as y'all know, it takes just a minute to get those to show. And let's see. Here we go. Now I've got them. And we've got a bunch of people here with us today live. That is fabulous. Always love it when people can join in. That makes it so much more fun. And let's see. Candy says, thank you. Something to look forward to. Yay, I'm glad you're looking forward to it, Candy. Hey, Elaine, it's good to see you. And Harriet. See, Karen says, I've been painting every day, and it's been very helpful. Very hard to keep it to 20 minutes, though. That's okay. The 20 minutes is a guideline. Think of that as a goal down the road. So if you're at 45 minutes right now, what are some little tiny steps you could take to gradually shave off some more time? Some people can do it in 5 days, go from the 45 to the 20, and some need a little bit longer runway. That doesn't matter. You just want to slowly get faster and slowly get more comfortable. And it's really not so much that you need to get faster, it's that you need to learn to let go. And letting go is much more easy when you've got that compressed time frame. So I kind of tricked y'all. Learning to let go is crucial to learning to paint, and paint without fear. So that is what we're going to be talking about on Thursday. So giving you a little bit of a hint. So don't worry about it, Karen, if you're not to 20 minutes yet. Wait and just shave off slowly. Keep painting. And the more you paint, the faster you will get. I promise. Lucy says, great to be here for day 5. I know. I wish I had something that went poof. I should have done that. I didn't think about it. That would have been fun. Hey, Patty. It's good to see you. And Sonia here. Great to see you too. Hey, Donna. And Margaret says, I learned more about solvents and why not to use them. Great. I'm so glad I have made an impact there. Y'all know I'm really hyper about safety in the studio. People have asked me why I don't like to use cadmiums, and that's the reason why. I don't throw them away. I'm going to use them up. And I truly do agree with Robert Gamblin and the others at Gamblin who've talked about the safety of cadmium colors and of solvents. If used correctly, heavy emphasis on correctly, I don't think they're a big safety hazard for most artists. The problem is that I have rarely seen, and I mean rarely seen, people handle those correctly. Most people are horrible in their studio habits as far as safety goes. People do things like leaving their food next to their palette, their coffee mug next to their palette. They have paint all over their hands and they reach for their coffee mug and take a sip. And if you've got cadmium red paint on your hand when you reach for the coffee mug and take a sip, it's really likely that you're going to get it on your lip. And as I said, I've lost friends and mentors to that kind of process. So be really, really careful with that. And Gwen says, should we also compare the works done in the challenge with something we recently did to really outline the changes this challenge has brought about? Yeah, I would do that in 2 phases, Gwen. I would take the 5 paintings from the challenge first, and I would line them up without anything else that you've been working on around them, so that you're just looking at those, not comparing them to either before or after anything else you've done. And look at what's going on in there. In all likelihood, there's going to be a day that you dipped a little bit, and my guess would be around day 2 or 3, because that's absolutely normal. Anybody who's ever tried to develop a new habit knows that there's a lot of enthusiasm the first day. Second, third day, you know how hard it's going to be. So there can be a little waning of enthusiasm, which makes that dip happen. But usually by the 4th and 5th, people come back up. So it kind of goes like this, then down a little bit, and then back up. So be aware that that's likely to be there, and that's okay. That's just normal. Then after you look at those 5 paintings, then I would take out something that you'd worked on just before that and see if you see any changes. And see where you might need to still make some little adjustments. Just look for small steps, not big, huge steps. Y'all make sure that you're not comparing yourself to the Mona Lisa when you talk about the next steps. Remember that big, huge goals and big, huge why statements freak out both the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain. So don't go there. Take little steps. Kathy says, I'm using a Strathmore multimedia 5x7 journal, dating each page so it becomes a little book of progress. I love the heavy paper and the fact it's contained in a precious little book. I think that's a fabulous idea. Somewhere in here, I think it's on a shelf in my storage room, I have a giant sketchbook that's coffee table size that I keep intending to do that same thing with. Instead, I went to panels. But I think there's something to be said for having those paintings bound in one specific spot, which means I want everybody to remember they don't have to be done in the medium you usually do your finished work in. You could be doing these in gouache or watercolor or colored pencil or pastels in a sketchbook as small color studies or black and white studies, and just keep that process going, and you'll see amazing results when you do that. So it doesn't have to be a whole big deal of getting out the big heavy guns. So keep it easy and you'll be more likely to do that. Kathy, post some pictures in the group of your journal. That would be great to see. I would love to see the whole thing. Yes, Jan, it is about the journey, not the end result. Over and over again, the scientific data shows that. We aren't satisfied by the end result as much as we are by the journey. That process is what really floats our boat. So keep feeding that. Let's see. Lucy says, thank you. Why are you doing this challenge for us? It's part of what we do in the Artwork Living Group. We run the challenge about twice a year, and it gets everybody all up and going. It's really good to do at the beginning of the year for painting. So it's the reason why we do it in Artwork Living. Artwork Living is free because as a teacher, and I've taught for 35 years, but as a teacher, I think it's important for there to be a whole range of ways to participate in what you have to offer. So I offer online courses. I teach workshops. Those are paid, and that's great and that's fine. Not everybody is ready for that yet. So I feel it's really important to have a space and a place where people can enter, and if they never can afford to take those courses or workshops, that's fine. That there's a place for people to gather and grow as artists, because ultimately that's what it's about. It is way more about joining people together and networking and building some creativity for people to learn how much fun painting is and what it can do for their lives. So that's why I do it, and why I will keep on doing it. Karen said, Nugget, I don't have to be in the mood to start painting. That is a major, major one. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Karen. Yeah, don't wait around for divine inspiration. Just get started. So you don't have to wait to feel like painting. Usually, once you start setting things up and getting things rolling, that will get you in the mood and get you in the flow. Oh, thank you, Bethany. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Dave, you absolutely can take the challenge again. Just go right through it again and keep on going. It helps in so many ways, as Gail says. Yeah, Veronica, absolutely. Simplify and prepare. Those are great nuggets to share. The more you simplify, the more you can become detailed later. It's one of those ironies of life and of painting. If you simplify to the bare basic bones and structures, it is so much easier to then add on rather than cluttering everything up and having to remove stuff. Yay. I'm glad that why part resonated, Eleanor. That helps a lot. Candy says her nugget is consistency. Creating a set time to paint and not worrying about the results, just doing it. That is huge. I think that is another big, huge golden nugget. If you do it every day, you're much more likely to have results. One of my mentors he's still around, says that. He certainly told us while we were in grad school that we were a whole lot more likely to have 50 successful paintings in a year if we painted 100 paintings. That the people who painted 50 paintings to have 50 successful paintings turned each one of those into something that was so precious that they couldn't afford to fail. Whereas if you know you're going to paint 100 and you might get 50 that are really good or 30 that are really good, there's so much more freedom. So, great nugget. Let's see. Vernona, what is ahead on Thursday and Saturday is that you'll be getting an invitation to a webinar tomorrow morning. Everybody who is in the challenge on the email list and in Artwork Living, you'll get an invitation to a webinar, and there'll be 2 times on Thursday and 1 on Saturday so that we can try to get in everybody who's in all kind of different places around the globe. Somebody asked us in the group last night, how many people did we have participating in the challenge? And the last time I checked the list, we had 2,300 people, 2,300 people, roughly, give or take 10 or 12, who are participating in the challenge. And I have not checked the numbers this morning yet. People are still joining all the time. So we have a lot of people who've joined in. We've got people in South Africa. We've got people in Hawaii. We've got people in England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, France, Germany, Canada, South America, all across the United States. So we've got people everywhere who are doing this. So we really needed 3 times to try to weave everybody in. So there's a webinar coming to talk about how to wrap this up and kind of take it to the next stage and step. Susan says, I just got started today because I just came across this challenge. I know it'll help me because one of my biggest challenges is just getting started. Welcome to the challenge, Susan. We're so glad to have you. Take your time and don't forget to post them in the Facebook group if you'd like to get feedback or if you just want that accountability of I did it and posting it. Let's see. Yes, absolutely, Harriet. We need that long runway in all kind of ways. Karen says, learning what a joy it is to use pre-mixed colors has been one of her golden nuggets, that she loves that spontaneity. So many people resist mixing their color ahead of time, especially I run into that when I'm teaching live workshops. And people don't want to do it because they think it's going to kill their spontaneity. And it's actually the exact opposite, as you learned. If you mix your colors ahead of time, then you know the colors are going to work well together. They look good together. And you can just think about painting when you start painting. Not about stopping and thinking, making decisions about what colors you're going to use. Dave says, because I get the feel of using the knives, but not happy with the results of the work. Yeah, if you're using a brand new tool, Dave, it can take longer than 5 days to really kind of get used to it. If I can remember to do it once I hop off, and my memory's not always really good, I will try to post in the group some of the first knife paintings that I did when I did my first daily painting challenge that I did for myself. And in that first 5, you can see what I mean by gloopy paintings. I mean, there's some that are just kind of sad, but they're there, and I posted them anyway. Carol says, speaking from a materials point of view, I've been using the Masterson Stay Wet palette for the very first time with acrylics. It's day 5, and those acrylics are still wet, as if I just squirted them out. I love that. Doesn't it work really well? I love those boxes, especially for acrylics. It's going to be a big help painting in the future. And I've learned you can't have enough white paint on the palette. Yeah, that's why they sell, in general, when you buy a set of any paints, oils, acrylics, whatever, the tube of white is 2 to 3 times the size of everything else because you'll use more white than anything else. Now, you don't want to always use white to lighten because it can dull the colors out, but there are a lot of colors, dye colors, that look brighter when you add a little bit of white to them. Donna says, the small quick paintings will help me to be faster and more prepared with my plein air work after the long winter. Yes, I think that's one of the places that working like this really quickly in that small box will you'll really see the biggest difference. Because when you're working outside, the light changes really fast. Actually, when you're working from observation, the light, the subject, and the color can change super quickly. If you can learn how to get the basics down really fast, you'll be 100 times better off. So absolutely. Yes, Susan. Glad the solvent info is a golden nugget for you. Eileen, mixing the paint takes a long time when you're first doing it, just like painting takes a long time when you first do it. The more you do it, the faster you'll get. So there really isn't any way to speed it up other than to do it on a consistent basis over and over again. Then it'll become a habit and you won't have to think about it. It's another one of those triggers, routines, rewards become a habit. And Tam says, learning to let go. Yeah, one of my biggest problems, I always overworked my stuff. Better to be rough and unfinished than to spend days reworking. Almost 99.99% of the time, I totally agree with you. I think one of the biggest problems I see in student work is not leaving it alone. So make a mark and leave it. Make a mark and leave it. Don't diddle with your paintings. The more you leave it alone, the fresher the paint will be. So that is a great golden nugget to share. Yes, Joyce, not trying to paint a masterpiece is more fun. And ironically, you'll have more masterpieces when you're not trying to paint a masterpiece. So that's a great one. Dave says, can you give advice on mixing? Stick with your, at least in the beginning, if you're not feeling comfortable mixing yet, stick with your double primary palette and try not to lighten your colors with white and darken with black. I have a whole article on my website on the double primary palette, Dave, and I'll try to stick it in the comments once we're done. So I'll stick the link in the comments here when we get done. Debbie says, here from Tucson, are you doing these live shots daily? Are you doing a Facebook post so we can see times and such, and repeat challenge if we missed it? I have been doing these lives every day at 11 o'clock. So when you sign up for the challenge, there's a reminder in each of those prompts that comes every day that I'm going live at 11 o'clock. So I'll be going live off and on again. Probably more on than off, but I'll be going live every day pretty much for the rest of the month. I'm not going to stick it at 11 once the immediate challenge is over. So if you signed up this week for the challenge, the times that I'm going to go live will be a little bit later. So that'll be in the email though. So whatever time I'm going to go live will be in the email. Sometimes I'm going live twice in a day. So like yesterday, I went live at 6 in the evening, and I looked at problems people were having in their paintings. The first 3 people who commented on the post in the group, I looked at their paintings. I'm going to do that again this evening as well. So if you're interested in that, make sure you look for that post when I post today's announcement about the 6 p.m. Facebook Live. So, yeah. People in the Facebook group and people on the list get notification of when I'm going to be going live. I don't do it all the time. Once we finish January, I'll be going back to once a week, which is my norm, or a little bit more, but once a week to talk about stuff and then popping in and out. Janie says, my big takeaway from the challenge was how to build a practice on positive reinforcement. Hallelujah. That is one of my biggies, and it really is the core philosophy of the way I like to teach. Positive reinforcement is the only thing that works long term. Now, if somebody threatens you when you're trying to learn something, whether you have a teacher or an adult or somebody else in a position of power who threatens you when you're trying to learn something and tells you that something horrible is going to happen if you don't learn it, you'll get that motivation to learn it for that short period of time, but it won't stick. So negative reinforcement doesn't stick long term. Only positive reinforcement does. She says, I am with the surfing dude. Cool. My reward at the end of the day of the painting practice will be exercise. That's a great thing to do. Movement helps to stimulate creativity. So everybody needs to add that into the mix. Laura says, one reason that the 20 minutes goes by so fast is that with all the planning and color mixing out of the way, I really get in the zone and time flies. Absolutely. That is the whole point there. When you do all the decision-making stuff ahead of time, you get completely in the flow, which is the zone, and time just flies by, which is why I think a lot of people have run over just a little bit. Donna says she's also learned how many people like these quick and loose small paintings. Yeah, they do. Somebody asked the other day about what to do with them all when they're done, and my response was sell them, because you'll be surprised how much more people like really confident loose paintings rather than tight constrained paintings, because did you see my body language when I did that? That's what happens when people look at them too. So people respond sympathetically in their body to things that have let go and are free rather than things that are constrained. So it's a very real biological response. Dave says, definitely learned that using better quality paint makes a big difference. Doesn't it just? The only problem I have with that is that once you use really high quality paint, you don't want to go back. So it's kind of addictive. But it does end up being cost efficient because quality paint goes further. So doesn't end up costing you any more in the end. Connie says, can I see the previous videos anywhere? Absolutely, Connie. Facebook records all of the Facebook Lives that we've been doing, and they live right here on my Facebook page. And if you go to if you're on a desktop, which is the easiest place to find them, if you go to the Videos tab on the left-hand side, and I think the tab is over there if you're on an iPad as well, if you turn it horizontally, landscape mode. When you're on a desktop or a computer or a laptop, the video tab is on the left-hand side. If you click that, you'll get the page with all of the videos on it, and you can go back through those to your heart's content. So yes, they are all there. Nellie, great. I'm glad you're going to do the challenge. Go for it. It's a lot of fun. Anna, I am so glad it has helped. That is wonderful. Veronica says, oh, I'm so glad you said that. Thank you. Y'all are so sweet. Thanks. Yes, Eileen, I'm glad it's helping you to make time to paint. That is spectacular. Jeff says, what's my thought on Golden Fluid acrylics? They're fabulous. I love Golden acrylics. That's really the only brand of acrylics I recommend or use. The fluid ones don't have enough body if you want to use a knife. So when I'm using the Golden acrylics and painting with a knife, I'll take some of the molding paste and add a little bit of that to the paint, to the heavy body paint, to give it even a little bit more body, so it's a little closer to the viscosity of oil paint. But the liquids, the more liquid of the Golden acrylics are wonderful for painting with a brush. So yeah, I like all of the Golden products. They're really fabulous. A good friend of mine, actually two good friends of mine work for Golden. So I also have a particular affinity for what they do in the community. Golden, like Gamblin and Williamsburg and a lot of the others, and Golden owns Williamsburg, do a lot towards education in the art community. They also give a lot back. When the hurricanes happened this past fall, all of those companies got together with the art supply stores in those locations and worked to get art supplies back into the hands of artists who had been affected by the storms. So I have nothing but good things to say about all of those companies and their products. So I am glad that this is helping Deepa and Laura. Yay. Yeah, don't worry about the outcome. Just paint daily. Harriet says her brother, a pro photographer, taught her to take an entire roll of film if she wanted one great shot. Excellent advice. I used to teach photography too. And if you get one shot out of a whole roll, you're doing really, really, really well. Same thing for paintings. Connie asked, how do I get on the list? Connie, I'm going to stick I meant to put it into the description here before we started and I didn't do it. I'm going to put the link to subscribe up above in the description for the video, and that will take you straight over to where you can subscribe to the challenge. Let's see. Janie says, glad you mentioned binding the studies. I cut my canvases to do just that. I want to log the study journey without having a bunch of panels to stack up. That's cool, Janie. I think that's an interesting thing to do with the canvases because you gave it a border. Really nice idea. Yeah, Nellie, you can absolutely sign up. I will put, like I said, I'll put the link up here at the top in just a few minutes. And Susan, as I said, the videos are right over there in the video tabs. Joni says, one of the roadblocks for me is social media and wanting the support of the group and see the beautiful works that are being shared. But before I know it, I'm sucked into looking more at my PC than painting. I totally get that, Joni. So one of the things that I do is I give myself this much time to just surf. And the rest of the time I need to go do what I need to do, whether it's being in my private groups to my students or being in the studio painting. So yeah, you have to put a timer on it. And there, I would actually just put a timer on your phone, just like you do for the challenge, so you don't get sucked down the social media hole. So one thing I want to remind everybody of is when the group is as active it's been in the last couple of weeks, actually the last couple of months, one of the things that can help so you don't get sucked down that hole is that you can turn off notifications from the group from specific posts or from the group entirely. Now, don't turn off all the notifications or you won't hear about it when we're doing special things unless you're going to visit every day. But if there's a post that has 4,000 comments on it, and we've had some that had close to that, and you're getting pinged every minute, go to that comment and click on the little 3 dots that are over to the right and turn off notifications for that comment, and then you won't get pinged every 3 seconds. It's really not that bad, but it can get busy at times. Ginger says, thank you so much for the challenge and information and positive outlook. I am so glad that you have gotten a lot out of that, Ginger. Vijaya says, just came across the challenge. How do you get on the list? Link will be up at the top in just a few minutes. Hey, Marina and Sherrod and Red. If the video isn't working for you, it's probably your connection. So what I would suggest is that you either get closer to your Wi-Fi router or shut the app down and restart it, and the video will still be here. It's working for everybody else. Let's see. Jan says, Masterson paint palette for acrylics. Yeah, that thing is phenomenal. It really, really does work. And I'm glad pre-mixing really helped there, Laura. Hey, CJ, it's good to see you this morning. And Susan said, I step away from paintings now before I decide if I like it. Big golden nugget there. Yeah, I tell my students the story of one of the times that I had been really struggling with a bigger painting in my studio. And I left incredibly frustrated at the end of the day. I thought it was the worst painting I had ever done. So I went into the classroom the next day to teach at the college and told my beginning painting students that they pretty much got a free run that day because I had just painted the worst painting known to man. And there was nothing that they could do that day that was going to be as bad as what I had painted the day before. They laughed at me really hard. When I got to the studio that afternoon, I saw it with completely fresh eyes and realized I needed to do this much to it to make it work. And it ended up being one of my favorite paintings. But I almost took a box cutter to that thing that evening. So don't do it. Wait till the next day before you scrape it. And yes, Christine, I'm looking right at you when I say that. Don't scrape it until the next day. Don't cut it up until the next day. Give yourself some time to look at it with fresh eyes. Yeah, the time constraint almost eliminates a lot of the bad stuff. Absolutely does. Kate says she just completed day 4 and loving it. Yay! It's okay if you haven't gotten below 30 minutes, but if you're painting for less than an hour, you are making masterful progress there, Kate. Patricia says, so many helpful tips. This challenge has really motivated me, and seeing all the artworks by others is helpful too. It really is. I think that's, to be honest, that's one of the reasons I love doing it, is I love seeing all of the paintings coming through. And it's really satisfying to see people make progress in there. So it kind of floats my boat too. Yes, and as everybody is isolated as you paint, getting the feedback and the conversation that we have over in Artwork Living is really, really helpful. We're going to be doing some regional networks and meetups later. We've been working on the planning of that. More on that later in February. So we'll be coming up with some ways for y'all to find each other in person. Yeah, I love Golden too, Laura. Beryl says, what about Golden Open? Yeah, they're great. I still put some, it's not filler really, but yeah, it is, I guess. I still put the molding paste, a little bit of the molding paste in the Golden Open. It's not the drying time that I'm doing that for. It's the consistency, so that it has more of the consistency of the oil paint for me when I'm using the knife. Now, there are a lot of people who are using Golden Open or just Golden Heavy Body with a knife, and it doesn't bother them at all. It's just that I'm so used to the texture of Williamsburg that if I don't add that in there, it doesn't feel right to me. And we tend to paint by feel rather than, you know, your head. So having that consistency becomes really, really important. So glad you're enjoying it, Caroline. Yeah, Jane says the time element helps suspend white canvas paralysis. It sure does. I would love to come to Connecticut for a workshop when it's warmer. So we'll talk. CJ says, so I don't judge myself. I look at famous artists' work, and that really proves that we have our own style. It sure does. And learning to reflect instead of judging is what's really important. So I want to make that distinction. Reflection means that you're tracking, that you're looking at where you're already taking steps forward and where habits, old habits, they're not serving you or getting in your way. But it's not telling yourself that you're a bad painter or that you're horrible or that you'll never be any good or that you're too old or too young or whatever else is running through your brain at the time. So that's a great, great observation. Mary says, what knives do you use for the smaller paintings? Thank you for your time. I will hold those up because I've got them right here. My favorite knife of all time is the RGM 109. It's like a big spatula, and I use that all the time, every painting, without fail. The other one that I use all the time, and you can see how old it is because this one's been abused a lot more. It was the first one I had. It is the, I think it's a number 61 or 81. It doesn't have the number on it because it's so old. Let me look over on the desk and I can tell you, maybe. I was looking to see if I had another one, and I don't right offhand, but I think it's either the 61 or 81. I use both of those. Should be able to tell from this. It's an 81. So this is an 81, and it is a flat end that I use for mixing a lot. Then the other one that I always have with me is a 61 or 62, because these get into little nooks and crannies. So with these three, I can paint all of the small paintings. When I'm painting outside, I like to use Dick Blick's blue-handled knives, because the blue-handled knives have a black anodized surface, so they're not as reflective. If you're painting outside with something like this, as soon as you tilt it just the wrong way, the sun goes right into your eyeballs and it really hurts. So using the blue-handled ones keeps that from happening. Even though they have Dick Blick's label on them, RGM makes these too. So those are the ones I use all the time. And then I have bigger knives for going with bigger paintings. So those are my go-to favorites. I have others, but those are the ones I really, really love. Do I recommend some kind of plexiglass cover for the Masterson box? The lid is torn. One of the things that makes the Masterson box work is putting a little lip of Vaseline. Put Vaseline on your finger and rub it around the edge, and that's what keeps the thing sealed completely. And that may be the reason why it was so hard to get on. It is a little hard to get on anyway. If that lid is torn, then I would just get a piece of plexi cut that is about an inch bigger than the box, so that it sits down on top of the box and helps to seal it. And that'll work pretty well. You may be able to get a replacement cover from Masterson. So I would go to their website and look to see if you can order another lid. But if you can't order another lid, just get some plexi that's about an inch bigger than the box, and that should do it. Malia says, I liked hearing that a short practice is good and a legitimate way to improve. It sure is. I am so glad that you got a lot out of it. Yes, as Elaine said, rub Vaseline around the edge. It helps it slip on. I am pretty sure Masterson has replacement lids, though. So I don't think it would be too hard to find that from them. Hey, Kumar, welcome to the video this morning, to the live broadcast this morning. I don't have any plans right now, Susan, to be in Knoxville, but we're looking at 2019 right now, and 2018 is pretty set. So if you look on my website at marygilkerson.com/workshops, you can see the workshop schedule. I can't talk for this year, but we are starting to work on 2019. Yeah, I love New Orleans. We'll look at that, Laura, for 2019. I have relatives in New Orleans, so it's one of my favorite cities. Actually, I have relatives in New Orleans who are artists too, so it's a very interesting art scene. Jeffrey says, I paint with a razor blade. Ah, careful, Jeffrey. That makes me nervous. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to do that. I am a klutz, so me and sharp objects on a regular basis probably would not work really well. So I might make a huge mess with that. I'll give it a try, maybe, but it makes me really nervous to do that. I am the person who tripped in gallery storage one time at the college when the light bulb was out and hit the broken glass with my hand. So I think I'll leave that one alone. I'm really good at doing silly stuff like that. Amber says, just found you this morning and loving the videos. Yay! You can. It's not the end of the challenge yet, Amber. You can still join the challenge. The challenge runs through the end of the month, through the 31st. So I'm going to post the link at the top in the description as soon as we get done here. And in fact, I'll try to pull it up in just a second and put it into the comments here as well. But you can still join. It is absolutely not too late to join. There are a lot of people in here who just started either today or yesterday. So we've got several hundred people who are going through it right now. And then about 2,000 who just finished or just stopped or finishing today. So plenty of people still working on it. So don't feel like you're too late. William says he used duct tape to repair his lid. I'm glad it still works. That might work for you if you can't find a new lid, but I still think you can get it. Yeah, Donna, I'm a klutz too. Hey, Claire, welcome. It's good to have you here. I think I have gotten to all of the questions. If you have any more, be sure to leave them in the comments, and I'll try to come back through later this afternoon and take a look at them. But don't forget, I want you to go do some reflection now. So if you have come to day 5, if you're on day 1, hold your horses on this. But if you're on day 5, make sure you go back and address the questions. Why? What was your why? What steps have you taken to get there? And what's still getting in your way? And then what have you learned about yourself and your painting? And what are the next small steps you can take to get past that stuff that's getting in your way? Don't forget that if you're on the list, and I'll also post it here on the Facebook page, you'll be getting an invitation to a webinar, and it'll have 3 times, 2 on Thursday and 1 on Saturday. Would love to have you join me there then. So we'll be talking about what the next step is as you develop your painting practice and how to weave it into a cycle of good habits. Take care, everyone. I've loved talking with you this morning. Happy painting. Bye-bye for now.